Welcome to your Intro to Carbohydrates podcast. In this podcast, we're going to talk about what carbohydrates are and the different types of carbohydrates. The molecular formula for carbohydrates is CnH2ON. So if we were to separate the molecular formula like this, you'll notice that carbohydrates literally are hydrates of carbon, which is where they get their name from. Most are polyhydroxy, aldehydes are ketones. And if we were to break apart that word poly meaning many, hydroxy we know are hydroxyl groups. If we look at the structure, you'll see it becomes obvious why we use that term. Here is ribose and fructose. We have many hydroxyl groups on both of these carbohydrates, and they're either aldehydes, meaning your carbonyl is at the end of the chain, or they're ketones with the carbonyl in the center. Both of these are considered carbohydrates. It doesn't have to be an aldehyde or a ketone, but it is going to have the presence of a lot of hydroxyl groups. Carbohydrates are also the primary products of photosynthesis. So way back to our high school days, that was 6CO2 plus 6H2O plus sunlight. Plants are able to make glucose and oxygen, and glucose is one of our primary carbohydrates for life. Let's talk about the different types of carbohydrates. So the first type is a monosaccharide. Mono means one. This is a single sugar, and you can't break it down anymore and have it still be considered a sugar. So some common monosaccharides are glucose, which is an aldohexose, and fructose, which is a ketohexose. These are two common monosaccharides that are found in honey. Disaccharides, di means two, you have two monosaccharides that have come together. So lactose is a common disaccharide. It's milk sugar, and it's made up of the monosaccharides glucose and galactose. We have glucose and galactose. Those two form an acetal bond, which is working just a little bit ahead. There's your OR group and your OR group, and they're able to form a disaccharide. Once we have more than two sugars coming together, we just call them polysaccharides. And poly, remember, think about them as being polymers of carbohydrates. So they contain many monosaccharides. This example down below is starch, and starch is a polysaccharide made up of glucose, repeating glucose monosaccharides. So here is a glucose, here is a glucose, there is another glucose. So this picture alone, and we know that it goes on, we just don't want to write the hundreds of glucose molecules that would come after this. We know that this continues on, and again, we have formed full acetals in between each of these, so we have an acetal linkage here. And again, that's just looking ahead a little bit and kind of bringing up some of that stuff that we learned during our aldehydes and ketones as well and applying it to carbohydrates. Not something you have to know right now.